Hello there! So, some types of music are more well suited for mapping than others. High-tempo Japanese pop rock likely comes to mind, but one of its main competitors for attention on Osu would arguably be another genre: standard drum and bass. I'm sure everyone's seen this map before. It's the 24th most played map of all time, and it's been up there since I started playing Osu half a decade ago. Around when I began making videos, someone approached me and requested I make a video explaining what makes certain popular maps tick, starting with this one. At the time, I wasn't able to formulate anything beyond what was obvious, so I passed on the idea, but I think I've got a decent way to explain why this map and others of its genre are widely appealing for playing and mapping. For explanation's sake, this is the kind of music I'm referring to as standard drum and bass. Hundreds of songs like this have been mapped on Osu, and while there are a lot of outliers in the genre, I want to focus mainly on the kinds of D&B that are most often mapped. These drum and bass songs have a few basic identifiers that make players find them worthwhile. This is the obvious stuff, like a not too low but not too high BPM around 174. Their rhythm usually varies from boring, repetitive white tick emphasis that plagues ordinary music. The strength of the drums and the bass really stands out when there's red tick emphasis, commonly occurring near the middle of each measure. Aiding that interesting rhythm is also a hi-hat track, often letting a map include 1/4 triples and short streams. They allow a perfect balance of jumps and streams, maintaining player attention throughout their whole run. And lastly, D&B sounds nice. This music presents a clear mood that's too subjective to be worth explaining, but I'm sure anyone who's played a bunch of the D&B Osu has to offer knows what I mean. The mapping perspective on drum and bass, though, is what I think really makes it work effectively for players. Drum and bass maps began their growth around when that previously mentioned map was made. It, along with content from Galvanized and other people in 2011 and 2012, pushed for high density and varied half-beat rhythms with occasional 1/4, later adopted by a larger group of mappers in 2013 to 2014, and eventually grasped by just about every mapper afterwards. How were drum and bass maps designed exactly? Using an idea that RLC explained a few weeks ago. They rarely follow each individual musical note, rather, they prioritize their own internal, made-up rhythms. Making up rhythms sounds sketchy, but D&B maps handle in ways that fit better than most other genres thanks to their song's composition and their creators' complementary mapping choices. What you'll notice about every drum and bass map is that the main, strong drums are mapped with standard, accurately representative rhythm. Snares and bass drums, usually appearing on white and red ticks, are always covered by objects with ordinary variations and respects paid to basic music theory stuff. If you've ever mapped, you should be familiar with this kind of rhythm foundation. While loud half-beat drum rhythms are as plain as can be, the made-up variety in drum and bass maps mostly comes from their 1/4 usage. And I'm not talking about obvious situations like the song has a loud drum on this blue tick, obviously a circle should go there. I'm more so thinking about the 1/4 rhythms that can't be mapped by simply duplicating music. When listening closely to a lot of drum and bass songs, it becomes clear that there's too many quarter beat hi-hat sounds to map. Yeah, they're practically everywhere, but because they're so weak, mapping them as death streams, or in a double BPM sort of style, feels really wrong. Those ways of mapping are usually considered too intense to fit the music. Mappers seem to aim for a compromise in this genre's case, mapping triples and 5-note long streams to represent a song's hi-hat track, regardless of exactly where in the music or how frequent those hi-hat samples are. There's no grounded rules to this, but there are some clear through lines connecting and controlling how average D&B maps use 1/4 rhythms. Examples make this easier to understand. What you're seeing here is the first ever D&B song I mapped. Pay attention to where I place triples and streams. Patterns. One of the essential ideas behind common D&B maps is handling 1/4 rhythm with internal consistency. For this map, I placed a triple leading into the third beat of each measure, or a 5-note long stream in the exact middle of each measure. No stream-like rhythm anywhere else for this section of the map. This is because in the music, each measure doesn't sound all that different, so it would feel odd from a gameplay perspective to have 1/4 rhythm varying all the time. These two undermapped 1/4 rhythm variations serve to represent the hi-hats in a way that's coherent enough and not too intense to match with the song's consistent rhythm. But that isn't to say all D&B maps need triples leading into beat 3 and quintuples starting from the same place. With a constant feed of 1/4 hi-hats in the song, consistency within a map is what matters more because 1/4 rhythms could, theoretically, be placed anywhere in a measure and follow notes in the music. Of course, being theoretically okay doesn't equate to the most appropriate still. To show what parts of a measure are solid for including 1/4 in average D&B maps, I looked through the choruses of maps from about 40 mappers, then documented where and how often in each measure they use triples and quintuples. last minute clarification, I am aware that different D&B songs have different hi-hat rhythms. Some have non-stop 1/4 hi-hats, some only have 1/4 around here, and some don't have 1/4 at all. Composition aside, most D&B maps are handled with similar undermapping or overmapping of 1/4 rhythms, which is what I'm partially showing here. Anyway, back to the spreadsheet. This is the data here, a little context. Triple 2, 3, and 4 refer to triples leading into the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th beats of a measure. Triple next refers to a triple leading to the next measure. Triple OK red is my terrible shorthand for triple leading to a red tick with a strong drum hit, 99% of the time being after beat 3 like this. And triple else is a triple leading into any other red tick. Based on that, you should be able to guess what my 3 quintuple markers are as well. So, for starters, examining all these maps reinforced how universal that internal 1/4 rhythm consistency is for D&B. Almost every map chose a couple locations in a measure to place 1/4 rhythms, and actively avoided placing 1/4 elsewhere. Like the Dear Brew map we talked about only placed triples leading to beat 3. Nemesis map of the same song placed triples leading to beat 4, and streams into the next downbeat. One of Domne's maps used triples leading to the strong red tick, and new measures. This ICO map focused on mid-measure quints and triples leading into downbeats. And this map by Aka here did those same quints, plus triples leading into beat 2. So there's a lot of options, yet it seems like most mappers follow an unspoken mapping guideline. Avoid triples leading into red ticks, except when the last note is a strong sound, or there's 3 distinct notes worth mapping. And that's because triples leading into relatively weak sounds end up feeling out of place. My recent hit sounding video explains why. Watch that if you're confused. Similarly, mappers avoid triples in places where half-beat rhythms would be more suited. The circle in between feels like it shouldn't be there because what stands out so much more is the surrounding drums. And in the same vein, mappers avoid quintuples that pass through especially strong drums, preferring to lead into the strongest sounds only. When looking again at all the maps here, it becomes obvious that certain parts of measures feature 1/4 more often than others, and I think there's pretty good reasons for each one. Leading into the next measure is common because big white ticks are often the strongest sounds of a measure. Triples leading to beat 3 and quints in the middle of a measure are common because in most D&B songs, that's where there's a lack of other drums. With no other instruments overbearing, hi-hats are the instrument that stand out the most here, so clicking 1/4 in these spots is more intuitive than anywhere else. Natural, intuitive. I'm using these words to describe D&B maps because, really, there's nothing tricky about them. Maps of standard drum and bass songs rarely try anything out of the ordinary because their songs aren't crazy like drum step wubs or hardcore guitar solos. That's why you'll just about never see stuff like doubles on D&B maps as well. They could potentially work as hi-hat filler, but they're not exactly natural feeling, so mappers lean towards conventional 3 and 5 note streams. At least 3/4 sliders are natural enough to be nice in D&B maps. They work well for variety because there's hi-hat sounds on blue ticks for tails to snap to, and they're basic enough to play that they don't seem out of place like doubles. If I were to analyze where they commonly appear in maps, you'd probably see them at the starts and the ends of measures, though that tends to be the same for most other music genres, so best not to dwell on that for too long. One unrelated thing I found interesting about looking through tons of D&B maps is how density changes over time. Some of the old D&B maps stick in 1/4 really rarely, like once every 2 measures or so. Just about every D&B map now, though, uses way more 1/4, including more variety through triples, quints, and 1/4 sliders especially. For whatever reason, 1/4 sliders just about never showed up in the first few years of D&B maps, whereas now they're a common replacement for triples and 5-note streams. Having more options like this for how to implement 1/4 is really nice though. To make different sections of music contrast with each other, it's really common to switch around to how 1/4 rhythms are used, such as only using triples in a calmer section, then longer streams in a more intense section. The hi-hats may not sound different between the 2 sections, but both are technically supported, and the intensity shift between sections makes its rhythm choice more than reflective of the music. So, that's about all I wanted to extract from the data here. Some final thoughts. What makes drum and bass fun for players is the interesting gameplay they support with a moderate tempo over nice sounding songs. What I, as a mapper, like about drum and bass though is how it makes you think about rhythm differently from casual pop and rock songs. You can't just copy the music note for note, you have to undermap or sometimes overmap in ways that complement whatever parts of the music you feel deserve it. Drum and bass is a genre inherently versatile for map design, and it's one of the few genres that people don't frown upon mappers doing kinda whatever they want with rhythm, which overall I think is really cool. Anyway, D&B is a fun genre to play and to map. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next week.